Hey everyone, we are here with Jenya. He'll be doing a talk on designing and building the ultimate DeFi aggregator. He's one of the co-founders of Zerion. And can you guys confirm in the chat that you can hear him?
Hey everyone. Hey guys. So my name is Evgeny Yurtaev. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zerion. And today I'm going to talk to you about designing and building the ultimate DeFi aggregator. So let's dive into that. And of course, thanks for joining the session. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat and I'll be answering them at the end of my talk after the live demo. Before I talk to you about how we designed and built the ultimate DeFi aggregator, I want to first start with why we decided to do that. So first of all, as you probably know, DeFi is very fragmented, and I wanted to show a few examples why it is relevant and why it's actually fragmented. So on the left here, you can see this is the graph showing the number of new DeFi tokens that were created per month. And that includes different ERC20s, and mainly this includes the derivatives. And a lot of them are coming from the Uniswap, of course, but you can see that this growth was exponential. And as a normal user of DeFi, it's impossible to keep up with all the growth that's been happening in the DeFi lately. And on the right, this is a bit an outdated one. So I believe in Q3 of 2020, it looks even more fragmented. But here you can see all the small dots, which represent user wallets. And in other, you can see the protocols as well, and how different wallets interacted with multiple different protocols. And you can see that this graph is like a complete mess, and essentially everyone is using different protocols, and it's impossible to keep up with everything that's going on in terms of the protocols as well. So when we first approached this problem, we built out the first Zerion MVP. For the ones who use Zerion already, you can see some familiarity with this interface, but this was our first version. It only supported tracking ERC20s, no DeFi stuff, I would say, except for like making transfers and making Uniswap transactions. And we had a few problems with this. And the biggest problem, there are three big problems with it. First of all, we were trying to approach every single integration natively. So we were essentially replicating the UI of the protocol itself, and we're trying to kind of fit it in Zerion. So this approach does not scale. Second, we were trying to customize each token type such that, like different C tokens, for instance, they look just like just like normal tokens, but yeah, somehow like hiding that inside of the UI. And that was creating a lot of complexity for the users because they didn't know the difference between the DAI itself or the DAI stored on compound. And lastly, we were using and relying on a bunch of other centralized solutions and APIs to fetch the data. And this is essentially creating a bunch of centralized dependencies, and centralized dependencies, as you know, they are not always reliable. Stuff breaks. And I think in our space, the only thing that doesn't break is Ethereum, and fetching the data directly from the Ethereum would be much, much more preferred. So moving on to how we redesigned and built our system. We started building out this vertical integration that would go from the users to the DeFi protocols, and all of these components will be created natively by Zerion. So first of all, we, instead of trying to replicate the UI of each protocol, we built a unified UI to do so. And then in terms of centralized dependencies, we solved that by creating an API layer that we fetch from that we built in house. So essentially, this API layer would listen to the nodes, listen to all the transactions blocks, and would create the caching layer for showing the exact portfolio balances, or just the creating this native DeFi experience. And lastly, instead of trying to connect with each protocol directly, we built DeFi SDK. And DeFi SDK is the smart contract layer that has adapters to each of the protocols on chain. And we would fetch the data and also make the transactions through the DeFi SDK instead of trying to go natively to each of the protocols. And that creates a much safer environment first for the users, because we are in control what kind of adapters are deployed to the DeFi SDK, so our users are in more secure position. And at the same time, it reduces the burden of implementing each different protocol separately. So I wanted to start with kind of the lowest level of this integration, which is DeFi SDK. So here is an example of how it kind of looks. So on the left, you see 3 different examples of protocols. Each of them has an adapter within DeFi SDK. And on the right, there's a portion of Zerion UI that shows the balances on these different protocols. And all of these balances are fetched directly through the DeFi SDK via a single call. And all of that is happening on chain. So like the DeFi SDK is deployed on chain. So it fetches the data directly. So there is no delay. And the data is always consistent and precise. So when we were designing DeFi SDK, we had 3 goals in mind. The first goal was to make it standardized. So we were carefully looking at each different protocol and we're trying to understand how we can kind of tie them together, what are the most important points of each of the protocol, and how we can make the interface to all of these different protocols in a standardized way. Second, it lives on chain, and that I already explained why it matters. And the biggest plus of that is that it essentially can fetch the data in a very precise manner. And lastly, it should be modular, because the number of protocols, as I've shown before, is growing exponentially, and we, as the company, as Zerion itself, won't be ever able to keep up with all the growth, especially if it's exponential. So we wanted to make the DeFi SDK such that anyone or any team, even the protocol team itself, can create an adapter for DeFi SDK, and whenever it's added to the DeFi SDK, it would automatically appear in the Zerion UI. So here I wanted to show one example of how interactions through DeFi SDK could be done, and why it is pretty interesting. So here is a pretty complex transaction. So on the left, you have, so let's say you're starting with C DAI. So you have C DAI, which is a compound DAI, and you want to convert that into something like Uniswap DAI. And with Uniswap, you need to essentially provide 2 different types of assets for the Uniswap DAI pool. You need to deposit ETH and DAI, and you only have C DAI on the left. So the way it works in DeFi SDK, it would call a withdrawal action, which would withdraw C DAI into DAI. Then it would call a deposit adapter that would use 50% of the DAI to convert that to ETH, and then the other half of the DAI would go directly to the last adapter. Combined with Ether from the second adapter, it could go directly to the Uniswap pool. And all of that is happening in a single transaction, which is the biggest benefit of using DeFi SDK. So in terms of how it currently looks, so this is Zerion now allows you to track your entire DeFi portfolio. Here is just a few examples. This is not the complete and ultimate list. We have support for over 50 protocols currently in the DeFi SDK and within Zerion. It allows you to explore all the DeFi opportunities and buy into any liquidity pool, make deposits, buy into buy vaults, and do staking. And it also supports borrowing and borrowing on Compound and Maker. So this is Zerion today, and I wanted to show you how we approach the last section of it. So essentially the Explore feature, that as we call it, inside of Zerion. And later I will show you that in the live demo. So this is how the Explore page of an asset looks like. So it supports essentially any token that is available in the DeFi space. So no matter what the complexity. So starting from any ERC20s, all the deposit tokens like A tokens or C tokens, and let's say balancer pools, Uniswap pools, and way more other assets. It shows you the historical performance of an asset. So you can see how the asset was performing over the last day, week, or year, and you can compare that with other assets as well. And I'm going to show you that a bit later. And also it shows you the transaction history. So all of your interactions that you did with this particular asset would show up with their reflective price attached to the transaction. And the one feature that we're currently working on that was highly requested by many people is profit and loss analysis, and more of these kind of analytical features are coming into Zerion as well. And that is all thanks to the vertical integration that we had and that I showed before. So in terms of the trading experience, we spent quite a lot of time thinking about how the trading experience should look like. We did look at many other implementations, what other wallets were doing in that regard, and we arrived at something I would say very, very cool. So our current explore page, so whenever you go to any asset page on Zerion, you would see something like this on the right, which would allow you to buy and sell this asset. And it doesn't matter, first of all, what kind of asset that is. It can be like a WBTC, as it is shown here, or it can be any other token as well, just like LP tokens. So we would look up multiple different liquidity sources. So we would start with Uniswap. I would also check on Curve. And we do support more and more liquidity sources are being added constantly. And lastly, we would check on 1inch exchange, which is a DEX aggregator itself. So that's why we call this concept a meta aggregation in a way. So we would find you the best rate across all of the different liquidity sources. And if, for instance, 1inch is giving you the trade that would go directly to Uniswap, instead of routing you to 1inch, which is more expensive in terms of gas, we would route you to the Uniswap, which is actually which would probably be cheaper for you. And for complex transactions, as I explained before, we would use DeFi SDK to make these complicated operations, and more interesting recipes are coming soon. So we would support, for instance, moving liquidity from one LP token to the other. And I think to end this kind of section of the presentation, I want to mention the Zerion Mobile App. And a lot of people actually use the Zerion Mobile App these days. So it's, I think, over 4,000 people use the app daily. So it has all the information that is available on the web as well. And it shows you, like, for instance, on the left, this is the summary of all of your wallets if you have multiple. To the right, you'd see the chart as well, and all of your portfolio. And all of the features like history as well is available in on mobile. And later this year, we are coming up with the feature to actually make transactions through your mobile app via Wallet Connect. So stay tuned for these announcements as well. And yeah, so it's thanks for listening. So this is a demo time now. Let me quickly switch over here. So this is how the typical user experience would look like. Actually, for a new user, it would start with connecting a wallet. We support a bunch of different wallets, starting from MetaMask, of course, and to Ledger. You could also, if you don't want to add your wallet, or you don't have it handy connected in your wallet and in your browser, you can just add an address or an ENS. So whenever the wallet is loaded, you would see something like this. So it would show up your portfolio performance over time, and you can see how your portfolio was doing. Here, you would see all of your different assets, and here you would see all of the deposits. For instance, this is the deposit on Compound that earns 2.8%. Here, you would see different staking opportunities. So here, this is the index staking, for instance, and here's the Dodo staking. You can actually click on any of these assets. So for instance, let me just quickly open the Uniswap. As I was shown before in the presentation, here you see the historical performance. You can see your equity here, and profit and loss will be calculated as well. Here you would see all the transactions that you made, and this is the price point, and this is the date at which you were doing the transactions. And here is some descriptions and basic links to verify that this asset is actually correct. And coming up with a feature to buy and sell, for instance, I just wanted to demonstrate that how it works. So here you would see that the best rate is offered by Uniswap, and you would see that, like, for 1 ETH, you would get 120 Uni. You can actually select any of the stable coins as well if you want to start, and if you want to pay with any of the stable coins. And for advanced users, we have the setup that would save your preference for the gas as well, and slippage. Yeah, so but if you want to, let's say if you're making a large trade, let's say 100 ETH, it will probably show up as 1inch exchange, because 1inch is actually splitting your order. And this is how Zerion would handle that use case, and will always give you the best rate across different liquidity sources. One feature that a lot of users love about Zerion is our history page, and the history page unifies this experience with multiple different DeFi protocols. So the coolest side of it is that you can actually search by essentially anything. So you can search all the trades that you were doing before, and if you open any of these, you'd see the fees associated with them. You would see the prices associated. So for instance, like 220 Curve tokens were sold for 200.3 Ether. And for also you can search by the protocol. So for instance, Curve would show up all of your Curve transactions. And lastly, on this side, I wanted to show you how we approach the Explore page. So Explore page is where you find the different DeFi investment opportunities, and we have created a bunch of different selections for you. So for instance, yield farming, you would see all the different yield farming tokens that are available in the DeFi space. 1 second, let it load up quickly. Yeah, so here, this is a selection of the most popular yield farming tokens. You can sort them by 1-day performance, 30-day performance, etc., or by market cap to find the asset that you would like to invest in. And again, you can click on any and instantly purchase it directly from the Zerion at the best rate. I think this is mainly it. Yeah, I'm gonna turn back to the questions now. Oh. So the first one that I see, how does Zerion make money? So currently Zerion is completely free to use. So Zerion is venture funded. We raised our seed round just slightly over a year ago. And currently, yeah, there's no fees associated with any of the transactions. We are thinking of doing some pro features. So essentially for more analytical features or for more information within the Zerion interface, we would probably start charging to our pro users. But this, yeah, we'll be announcing that as it happens. The DeFi SDK in Binance Smart Chain. So yeah, a lot of people were asking about the Binance Smart Chain. DeFi SDK right now exclusively lives on Ethereum. So we haven't dived into the Binance Smart Chain, but we are looking at other chains as well. We are considering other chains too, and Binance is among them. Yeah, so the last question I think is how is historical chart prices taken? So we are using a few different sources of prices, and I think this is the only external dependencies that we have. We currently use CoinGecko for many of our prices, but we do fetch the data from Balancer and Uniswap as well directly from the contract. But sometimes the liquidity for some tokens is very, very little in the DeFi space, so we are using CoinGecko as another source of truth for the prices. And yeah, so the best rate is the best rate offered after aggregation. Correct. So we are looking at all different routes, and we are evaluating them using the gas cost as well, and looking at the rates, and we are we're taking the best one. Do you feel like aggregator space is congested or competitive? I wouldn't say so. So at least it doesn't feel like that to us. So it definitely did become more competitive over the last half a year, I would say. When we started building Zerion, I think it was only us and Instadab who were even like trying to do something in the aggregation space. Right now, it's definitely way more players, but it's not. I don't think it's as crowded as the DEX space, for instance. Does this compete with the token swap feature that MetaMask just launched? So this is actually a pretty similar design. So we rolled out our design slightly earlier than MetaMask. MetaMask, as far as I know, they haven't rolled out that yet to everyone, but I think it's very similar in the sense that they're approaching this as a meta aggregator. So they're looking at multiple aggregators to fetch the best rate. So yeah, that's similar, but they currently, I think they will be charging almost a 1% fee on every swap. So we currently do not charge anything for these transactions, so feel free to use us instead of MetaMask. Um, uh, are you going to offer a token which will be minted based on Zerion usage? So the token idea, yeah, we did think a lot about the token and how it can be done. Currently, I believe we didn't come up with something that would be something that we would love to implement. We still want to reward our users for using the Zerion, and that's always in the back of our mind. But we want to come up with a design that would make sense for everyone, and this might take a few months, but it might take years as well. But we're here to stay, so keep using Zerion. We'll remember that for sure. I don't think there are any other questions. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. And yeah, follow us on Twitter. That always helps. We put and of course Discord too. So we will put all of our announcements to both Discord and Twitter, and we have a pretty engaged community in Discord too. Oh, one more question, I think. Would Zerion be looking to collaborate with new ICOs? That's we did leave through the ICO time, and I honestly don't want that to repeat in the same way as it was. So hopefully, like, we're not planning to collaborate. So we are providing an instrument for people to discover stuff in DeFi space. So I expect some ICOs will be there, but I'm not sure about collaborating with them. Yeah, what else do you guys want to see or listen about? Happy to talk. Will we add centralized exchange aggregation along with DEX? So this is again, we were in talks with Zabo. I don't know if you've heard about them. So Zabo is providing API access to a bunch of different exchanges, including centralized exchanges, to create a more complete picture of your portfolio. So that is something that is very interesting. We didn't get too many requests from users yet about having all of the centralized exchanges connected to Zerion. But yeah, if you are interested in that, let us know. We have our public roadmap on roadmap.zerion.io, so you can go there and yeah, and suggest any feature, suggest any token. We're always monitoring that for all the requests, so feel free to do that. Yeah, what makes you guys different from other aggregators? I already touched a bit on this, but yeah, if you mean other applications like Zap or DBank, so all of the aggregations, I think aggregators, they approach stuff differently. And for us, for instance, like, I think Zapper is the closest one to the current form of Zerion. I think the big difference is in the implementation. So we have a lot of things built in-house, customized for Zerion specifically, and Zapper is more of a front-end side of the Ethereum node at this point. And the DeFi SDK is also a more generalized version of Zaps in a way. So I think these are the major differences. And of course, yeah, on the mobile side, I don't think we have any competitors at this point. Yeah. It's a race for total aggregation. Sorry. Yeah, it is a race for a total number of integrations. I believe with all the new tokens and pools and farming, you're not sure that. Yeah, it's always feel behind things, and things are moving too fast. Yeah, I agree with that. So this was this was one of the big concerns for us. We definitely felt like we are, always catching up. And I believe with the approach that we took with DeFi SDK, it's possible that at some point we'll be able to kind of automate this process. So whenever new tokens or new protocols are launched, they would themselves integrate into DeFi SDK. So it's less and less work on the Zerion side to have support for all of these different financial instruments. So I think this is possible in some future, but it's not currently possible, I would say. Yeah, I don't think there are any other questions, right? So thank you so much, guys.
Awesome. So we're going to transition to next talk now. Thanks so much for the really great session.
Thank you.